A few years ago, I took one of my unused computers that is neither too new nor too old and set up some older nostalgic software from the late 90s and early 2000s. I didn't make a video about it because this personal setup was nothing interesting or special enough to share. But now I had the chance to take this to the next level by replicating the hardware too. While of course it still has a personal touch and it still may not be very impressive, I decided to make a video about it this time, because there's always something satisfying about putting together a working computer out of two broken ones. It's not the healthiest thing to look at the past with rose-tinted glasses, pretending it was all perfect unlike the present, but reliving some positive memories of years gone by can feel pleasant in a unique way. If nostalgia means anything to you, doing something like this with your own twist can be a fun project. Back in 2005, my family had just bought a brand new Acer Aspire 1690 laptop. It wasn't the best laptop at the time, but it wasn't cheap either. But enough about my life story. Let's see what we have here 18 years later. This laptop is a little beat up, but that just adds to the charm. On the left side there's just a DVD-RW drive. On the front there's one speaker, infrared port, power and battery lights, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi buttons and lights, line in, microphone and headphone jacks, a USB port and the other speaker. On the right side there's a FireWire port, SD card and MMC reader, card bus slot, two more USB ports, S-video output, 10100 Ethernet, phone jack for the modem, and a cooling vent. Over here it says NVLink Signal Up, that's Acer's marketing name for wireless networking. On the back there is a power jack, VGA port, the battery, and Kensington lock slot. On the bottom there are several covers that can be removed to change the memory, the storage, the Wi-Fi card, which is mini PCI, and even the processor. Is it that difficult to make a laptop like this these days? It doesn't matter if it's thick, that would be fine. We open it up and see a 15-inch glossy display with the Aspire 1690 badge. But let's look at the other information sticker, and it says it's an Aspire 1682. What's up with that? Well, like I said before, this computer was put together from two. Some parts are from my original 1690, more specifically 1694, that is now dead because the onboard graphics stopped working, and some are from this Aspire 1680, which is an identical looking laptop I recently found on eBay for a very low price. It was sold as for parts are not working, and it didn't include the charger, but I bought it because the seller showed that it could turn on and get past the BIOS with no graphical glitches, which would indicate the GPU going out. My Aspire 1690 charger still works, and it is compatible with the Aspire 1680. Both computers are from 2005. The 1680 is a few months older than the 1690 and has slightly lower end hardware, but for this project it's more than good enough. Here are the remnants of my original 1690. The keyboard is screwed up, the stickers are more worn out, and the motherboard is useless unless you know how to microsolder. But most of its other parts were still good, in fact better than the ones in the 1680 I just bought. So I swapped them over, starting from the screen. They both have 15-inch display with 1280 by 800 resolution. The 1680 came with a matte display, which would have been better, but somehow the anti-glare coating is damaged on it. It still works, but it looks awful. So I swapped it from the screen from my 1690, which is glossy, but it has no defects. Because swapping the screen requires removing the bezel, I decided to swap the bezel too. The discrepancy between the badge on the bezel and the sticker on the case should emphasize that this is a Frankenstein computer. I also had to swap the optical drive. They're both DVD-RW drives. The 1680 came with a Quanta drive that appears to work, but it can't read any discs, even after cleaning the lens and lubricating the rails. My 1690 came with a higher quality Pioneer drive. Also, my 1690 battery can't hold a charge anymore, so I kept the 1680 battery, which lasts for about half an hour. Not bad for an 18-year-old laptop battery. Let's compare specs now. And by the way, don't ask artificial intelligence to do that for you, because it's wildly inaccurate. The 1680 came with a 1.6 GHz Intel Pentium M725. The 1690 came with a 2 GHz Pentium M760. This sounds like a good opportunity to swap CPUs, especially since I want as many parts from the 1690 as possible to live again on the 1680. If you've seen my video about the Toshiba Portage M200 tablet PC, you know swapping CPUs in this generation of computer can be problematic. Installing an unsupported CPU on the Portage limited the clock speed to 600 MHz, even after patching the BIOS. But what about this Aspire? It works at the same clock speed the original CPU was at. It's limited to 1.6 GHz, even though it could go up to 2. And there's no BIOS patch for it. The clock multiplier, front side bus, and cache are all different, and they can't be reconfigured on this motherboard. But 1.6 GHz is certainly usable, unlike 0.6 on that other Pentium M machine, so I can't complain much. We might not have improved the performance, but we didn't make it any worse either. The Pentium M 760 also supports no execute, which the 725 does not, so you could install Windows 8 or 10 32-bit. While that's not what I bought this computer for, I tried it out of curiosity anyway, and somehow it didn't work. It was stuck at the Windows logo, or just automatically rebooted. Normally it should show an error when you use a 32-bit CPU without NX support like this. I didn't delve further into it on this 1680 because of course that's not nostalgic. I want to run Windows XP on this machine. Both laptops originally had 512 MB of RAM, but because I have some spare compatible RAM sticks, I upgraded it to 768 MB. It's enough for Windows XP. Both have the same kind of Intel ProSet 2200BG wireless card, but I swapped them anyway. I actually had my 1690's Wi-Fi card in my IBM IntelliStation, but I took it out to put it in this 1680. The 1680 came with an 80GB hard drive, while the 1690 has 100GB. They're both Seagate Momentous 4200 RPM IDE hard drives in acceptable conditions. But once again, I chose the part from my 1690, keeping the other drive as a spare one, even though I don't really need the extra 20GB. An SSD could help, but it's really worth it only on a SATA system. The 1690 had Bluetooth, the 1680 does not. But it does have a Bluetooth button, which works, but the OS says no device found. Here's the Bluetooth module taken from my 1690. It could be installed on 1680 motherboard, the connector is right under the keyboard, but the problem is placing the module under the case where it's supposed to be. It requires unscrewing a huge amount of screws, so I don't feel like it's worth it. And now let's talk software. Despite the 1680 having lower end hardware compared to the 1690, it has one software advantage. It comes with a license for Windows XP Media Center Edition. My 1690 only had the Home Edition. So I did a clean installation of XP Media Center and tried my best to make it look identical to the original Acer installation. However, I wasn't totally satisfied, so I tried a slightly unconventional but easier solution. I used my 1690 recovery disks. Yes, it's Home Edition, but I don't have any nostalgia for XP Media Center. Plus I have that OS on my other computer anyway. Acer actually developed an alternative to Windows Media Center called Arcade. It's more basic, but it works. And this is absolutely hilarious. This button is supposed to say RIP CD, but that word means RIP as in... Anyway, restoring the original 1690 installation still wasn't that easy. I made a video about using those recovery disks on my HP and Lenovo computers, and now it's time to try them on this Acer. It didn't complain about the wrong kind of system and restored successfully, but the resulting OS did not boot up at all, just stuck at a blank text mode screen with blinking cursor. I tried the Fix Hard Drive Controller tool from a mini Windows XP disk, but that didn't help. I ended up using a standard Windows XP Home Edition disk to do a repair installation. It reinstalls Windows without deleting any files and programs. When it asked for a product key, I entered the one from my 1690, because the one from the 1680 wouldn't have worked. It also automatically created a new user called Owner. And as a bonus, it updated the service pack, because the original installation was Service Pack 2, and I used the disk with Service Pack 3. I still remember when XP Service Pack 3 first came out in 2008. I installed it on my then working 1690 from Windows Update, and it worked no problem. I'm trying to replicate a setup from 2005 here, but there are no visual differences between Service Pack 2 and 3. The latter still has old Internet Explorer 6 and Windows Media Player 9. After installing the OS, I updated drivers with Snappy Driver Installer, but the video driver couldn't be installed. And here's the most important part, because if it breaks, it will be just like my 1690 all over again. This 1680 has ATI Mobility Radeon 9700 AGP graphics. The 1690 had ATI Mobility Radeon X700 PCI Express graphics. I have to do my best not to let this computer overheat. The games I want to play on this setup shouldn't be that demanding, and I wouldn't be playing them for a very long time. Since Snappy Driver Installer didn't work for the video driver, and the drivers for older laptops are gone from Acer's website, I ended up updating the video driver using an installer for Dell laptops. But now all is good. I even tried the S-Video output, which works. Here it is going to my VCR and then to this 1980s portable color TV via RF. That's quite a sight. But I couldn't keep this XP Home Edition installation if I couldn't activate it. Well, this is a very similar Acer system, it's not exactly the same. So can it be activated? I was too lazy to call the number and type the super long code like I did a few years ago, so I connected to the internet via Wi-Fi and downloaded Legacy Update. It has an option to just update the security certificates without installing the Legacy Update component, so I did that first. And then activation over the internet was successful. As for other updates, I could do them, but it would take a long time. I would have to keep this computer running for a while, which could make it overheat, even though I just installed new thermal paste on the CPU. I will usually use this computer offline, so there's no need to set up an antivirus either. I didn't turn Windows Update off, but without the Legacy Update patch and an internet connection, it's not going to find any updates. So now it's set up. Great. Now what? I've achieved what I wanted, recreate the setup I had when I was much younger. I won't use it regularly, I'll just boot it up sometimes when I feel like it, or when I need something that requires Windows XP, and that's about it. These days, some people think that a retro setup is like a Core 2 Duo, or an early generation Core i5 or i7 with Windows XP x64 edition, but that was completely unheard of back then. 64-bit versions of Windows became relevant only after Vista, and while most hardware from the early 2010s designed for Windows 7 can run XP, it's overkill, and a bit of a waste if you ask me. But once again, every setup has someone's personal twist. My aim was to have a period-appropriate retro rig, not a powerful one. Other people's aim may be different, so have fun with whatever hardware you can acquire, and thank you for watching.